guys, welcome to Miss Orin's class. How are you, class? Are you waiting for my class today? Alright, before we start the meeting, it's better if we pray first together. Today's topic is about narrative text. In this section, I will bring 4 subtopics. The first is the definition and function. The second is the generic structure. And the third is the type of narrative text. And the last one is the language features. Okay, class, we come to the first one. The definition of the narrative text. Have you ever heard or read about the narrative text, class? Oh, I'm happy to know most of you understand the narrative text. Now I will explain again the narrative text. Actually, the narrative text is the story with complication or problematic events that it tries to find the resolution to solve the problems. For easier to remember, you guys, I will explain with the other words. Narrative text that tells imaginary story of one or more characters who face entertained situations which are made with an aim to entertain or amuse the reader. Okay, now we move to the second one. The purpose of the narrative text. As I said before, the purpose of the narrative text is to amuse or to entertain the reader. But not only that, class, narrative text also consists of a moral value. Okay, guys, now we are going to the next subtopic. It is about the generic structures of narrative text. Oh, alright. As you can see from my PPT, narrative text has 4 parts. The first is orientation. I will explain about the orientation. It is about the opening paragraph where the characters in the story are introduced. The settings, when and where are also mentioned. Usually it is consists of 1 paragraph only. And in this part, you can answer the question about what is the story about, who are the characters, where is the place settings, or when the time settings. We move to the second one. Second one is about complication. Complications tells the beginning of the problems which leads to the crisis or climax of the main participants. So, if the orientation part only consists of 1 paragraph, in the complications part, it can be more than 1 paragraph. It depends on the length of the story. The third, about resolutions or climax. It is where the problems in the story are solved, either in a happy ending or a sad ending. The fourth one, or the last one, is about the reorientation or coda. This is a closing remark to the story, and it is optional, guys. It consists of moral lessons, advice, or teaching from the writer itself. Why it is optional? Because moral lessons can be written explicitly or implicitly. And then we are going to the types of narrative. Narrative text has many types of the story. The first is about folktale. Do you know guys about folktale? Yeah, folktales was passed down a story from generation to generation by word of mouth, which is called oral tradition. It is also explain the wonders of the world and teach moral and lessons. For example, in Indonesia, Sang Kuryang, Danau Toba, and Maling Kundang. And the second is fairy tales. Fairy tales is a story that it consists of magic, fairies, giant, witch, and much more. The third one is fable. Fable is a story that usually uses animals to teach a valuable life lessons or moral. For example, in Indonesia there are si kancil, kelinci, and kura-kura, and etc. And the legend. Legend is a story often believed to be true and in which the characters are usually considered historical by some. For example, Robin Hood, King Arthur, and Pecosville. And the last one is romance. Romance is a story with a theme of love. Do you guys ever heard about Romeo and Juliet? Yeah, this is an example of a romance story. Okay class, now we come to the language features. We can find out whether the story is narrative text or not is from the language features. Do you guys remember about past tense? Actually, narrative text uses a simple past or past continuous tense. For example, grew, helped, was helping, and much more. The second, use adverb of time. For example, long time ago, one day, in the morning, and once upon a time. The third, use direct and indirect speech. Usually, direct speech used in the dialogue in narrative text. So the characteristics are there are quotes of each sentence. It's like, can anybody help me to build the temple? And the indirect speech usually is a statement point. For example, she asked him to make her take and a boat in one night. Well class, up to this point, do you understand class? So to be clearer, after this, guys, you should watch the video about the narrative text. Okay, check it out.
King and his daughters.
In a kingdom far, far away lived a king and his 3 daughters. The king loved them very much, for they were good and beautiful girls. But one day he decided to test how much they loved him. The king gathered his daughters around him and asked each of them the same question. "How much do you love me?"
"Oh, father," said the eldest daughter, "I love you as much as all the diamonds and all the rubies in the world, and more."
"That is excellent," said the king happily.
"Dear father," said the second daughter, "I love you as much as all the gold and silver in the world, and more."
"Wonderful," said her father, and smiled. Then it was the youngest daughter's turn.
"My father and king, I love you as much as all the salt in the world, and more."
The king was very surprised at her answer. "What did you say? I think I must have misheard you," frowned the king.
"I said that I love you as much as salt," repeated the youngest daughter.
"How dare you! Your sisters love me as much as diamonds and gold, "And you love me as little as salt," said the king angrily. "Leave this kingdom right now and never come back." The little princess hid herself in the woods, but she soon got very tired. She sat on a log and started to cry when a prince who was passing by on his steed heard her. As soon as he saw the pretty princess, the young prince fell in love with her. The prince took her to his castle and soon asked her to marry him. The young princess told him that she would only marry him if her father, the king, came to the wedding. "Sadly, my father is angry with me and has told me never to return to his kingdom," she explained. "Don't worry, my darling. I will send him an invitation to our wedding, and when he arrives, we will teach him a lesson," said the prince, and immediately sent a wedding invitation to the king. But the clever prince didn't write that he was marrying the king's youngest daughter. So when the wedding day came, the king arrived. He sat at the banqueting table in the place of honor next to the prince. Then he was served a meal which looked absolutely delicious. But when the king came to taste it, he frowned and cried out, "This meal has no salt in it. I can't eat it." At once a person wearing a veil brought him salt and said, "Here you are, my king. I hope that the meal will taste better now." The king immediately recognized her voice. The salt-bearer lifted her veil, and the king saw his youngest daughter. He understood at once what the prince and princess wanted to teach him. Ashamed of what he had done, the king begged his daughter to forgive him. The princess cried out in joy, "Oh, my father, I forgive you, and I love you with all my heart." They hugged each other, and the king, the prince, and princess.
Alright, how about the video class? Do you ever heard or read about the story? Okay, as you can see here, it is a general structure of the king and his daughters. You can read by yourself, class. And then we are going to the next PPT. And then this is the language features of the king and the daughter. The first, this story used past tense. For example, the king was very surprised. The king loved them. And the second, it is also consists of adverb of time, like one day, at that time, and etc. The third one, the story consists of direct and indirect speech. Direct, for example, "I love you as much as all the gold and silver in the world and more." And then indirect, the prince took her to his castle and soon asked her to marry him. Alright, class, I think that's enough material for today. I hope you guys understand clearly about the narrative text. Thank you, class, for joining my class today, and see you when I see you guys. Bye.